Ahmed. I'm hard to pin down. I think a lot of people are. There's a saying that at the end of a long journey, we return home and we see it for the first time. I think that people are kind of like that. When we come back from a journey, when we come back and we look at ourselves, when we learn about people, we learn that people are icebergs. And in some cases, you guys are like the iceberg. At least here. This is my icebergs. Or icebreakers. So, I mean, we chip away at the facade of adulthood and we find the layers of ourselves that are underneath. And there's a lot of layers here. When I was a toddler, I was strapped in the back of my mom's Volkswagen Bug in the 70s in New York City. And my mother would drive past a Burger King. And there were a lot of Burger Kings in Manhattan at the time. Still are. And my first words were, "Mother, I would like to have a hamburger." Actually, the words that came out of my mouth were, "Buddy!" And my mom would drive past the Burger King and she would hear, "Buddy!" back in the back seat. And she didn't understand what that meant. Until one day she went through the drive-thru and it dawned on her that I loved hamburgers. And so began my lifelong romance with hamburgers. You lived in Manhattan, which is a part of New York, I think most people know, the part of the tall buildings. And it was in the late 70s. And so we actually lived not too far off from where the World Trade Center was constructed. We lived a few blocks from there. And in some ways, the parallels of the World Trade Center and how it was constructed and what happened to it, which you all know, kind of affected my life. Because I came from an immigrant family in Pakistan. We were a Muslim background. And we ended up, my dad ended up getting a job in Saudi Arabia. And I ended up living in Saudi Arabia for like 7 years. And then I ended up coming back. I came from a very strong Muslim background. And I had a very, shall we say it, deep exposure to a lot of the parts of the religion of Islam that a lot of people in the West are really afraid of. And I learned a lot about that. I learned, and that's kind of sparked my curiosity about religion and about people. And I really used that time to sort of understand that people are really not as different as they appear at the outset. So I like to explore things about people. I like to learn about people. I think I probably would have been a journalist if I didn't end up becoming an engineer. Because I like to communicate and I like to learn about. I'm I'm incredibly curious. That's probably the definition of my life. I've been curious about everything. When I was around 4, I got introduced to books by Dr. Seuss. I really love Dr. Seuss, and I still love the play of words and literature. And since then, I've read. Since in the past 12 years or so, I've read a new book every month or so. I love reading, and I highly recommend it. I think words and literature are kind of underrated in today's society. I like poetry, and I'm actually going to read a little sample of my poems to you guys in the hopes that they aren't completely dorky. At the same onset, I'm 36. I've never been married or had a serious girlfriend. Maybe the poetry has something to do with that, or maybe it doesn't. I've definitely been in love a few times. I've gone up and down in waist size over the years, and that has been also a constant sort of underlying facet of my life. And I'm currently in the process of losing weight, which I hope to get, along with things like Toastmasters, will allow me to be a little bit more outgoing, a little bit more sociable with people. And so I'm on that journey. I'm going on that hill. Let's see what else. As for my education, I spent like 8 years getting an undergrad degree, and I'm sure my parents didn't really enjoy that part. In fact, I actually ended up dropping out of school at the end of it, and my dad really didn't like that part. But I ended up becoming a software engineer, and I mostly hate software engineering, except I like the creative part of it. I will say this, I love literature and poetry, and I also like software engineering. I think among engineers, they're generally self-effacing and humble, and I think poets tend to be very self-aggrandizing and self-absorbed. And I think I'm in between that spectrum, so I don't know where exactly I am. But I'm going to leave, I'm going to end this by reading one of my poems. It's a little longer poem. Hopefully, it's not really on topic, it's not really about myself, but it's about the observation I had while being at a mall on Black Friday. This is a little long, but it's kind of, I don't know, I like this one, so that's why I'm doing it. So whatever. And if I go over time, I'm just going to keep going, and you can this is my first speech, so whatever. Hi-ho. So this is called Black Friday. Hi-ho, lo, it's off to the mall I go. Traffic lights, bus stops, cops, parking lots. Carbon footprints slip silently past sliding doors, emerging into a refrigerated breeze, lulled into a primal stupor. A sign above says no solicitation, but the fine print reads, abandon your soul, all ye who enter. Like a Pied Piper's cave, it is a wildlife sanctuary that contains adolescence. Every genus of youth is represented in this arc of commerce. From a gaggle of auburn-haired, sweet 16-year-olds who parade in short skirts and tight jeans, giggling over fake tattoos and real piercings, to lanky black kids in oversized sweatshirts and gaudy jewelry. In shadowy corners, lurk self-described losers, self-promoting mall rats, painted in irony, costumed in black, swaggering past each other with affected accents, borrowed cynicism, and parroted sarcasm. Rebellion is purchased easily from novelty stores. On the sly, jocks and janes vie for each other's moody affection. The romance of fastly moving fingers texting their fickle soliloquies under the noses of ambivalent adults. Passion plays played out every afternoon on schedule after football practice and before dinner. The senile brigade leaves before sunset. Like clockwork, old men and hunched-over women who walk even slower than they drive, shuffling to frustrate those harried young mothers in newly minted mom jeans, pushing strollers filled with newborn consumers who are swaddled tightly in brand names, and dragging along children who blindly swoon for toys and candy at every register. Along the windows of electronic stores, men are attached like sugarfish, gazing lustfully at the largest screens and the smallest cell phones, freed for a moment from the whims of wives and girlfriends, hoping each day for secret surprises that may never come. But the jewelry counter is empty. Desire is sold out. Career women walk hurriedly past into lingerie and shoe stores, shoulders wearily laden with scented soaps, candles, and body lotion, exhausted from chasing femininity. The food court is busy. Balding fat men in shorts with fanny packs, latchkey kids half-heartedly doing yesterday's homework. All around, Hispanics and Asians in multi-hued logos clean and serve, and a certain pecking order of race is observed. Tiny kiosks that sprout randomly around like mushrooms after the rain, peddling future garage sales, as the occasionally rich wander past. Perhaps a young woman with trendy sunglasses perched in bleached hair with whitened teeth, who might be accessorized by either a tiny pooch, a flashy handbag, or a fat Asian child leashed for safety. In the bookstores, the crowds browse gossip mags and stuffed catalogs, as celebrity photographs and signs above tell where to purchase wisdom. Expensive classics lie unread and unseen, forsaken for tiny books that advertise a vague, non-threatening spirituality as if it were a type of breakfast cereal. I wander through this mall, this Chinese warehouse of knickknacks, marveling at the supply chain irony that a Marxist nation feeds our endless appetite for crap. Yet one can only purchase membership in this society with credit, and the interest of happiness is always increasing. Above all else, to thine own wallet one must be true. I hastily exit, past the smokers and security guard, past the muzak and road car, into an overgreen meadow where soft lights, desolate, and the moonlight is bright. Crickets chirp noisily, and I am alone, free, at least until I notice the billboard above, which reads, "Land for sale for commercial use only."